lesson 6 of food preparation and nutrition, cooking lessons at home, and today we're going to be looking at flapjacks. Quite a simple recipe, I think. 250 grams of porridge oats, 125 grams of light brown soft sugar, 125 grams of the block butter which has been melted, and 2 to 3 tablespoons of golden syrup. I've also got here a glass of hot water. I'm going to show you a trick to make sure the golden syrup falls off your spoon. I'm just going to start off with my stick blender or immersion blender, and I'm just going to blend not all of the porridge oats because we don't want it to turn into flour, but I'm just going to blend a few of them. You can do it with a stick blender or with any different types of blender. If you haven't got a blender, it's not the end of the world. I just like a slightly finer consistency. So just a few seconds. I'm just going to blend a few of the oats. So when we have a look now, we've got that mixture between the fine grain and the larger oats, okay? And it's a really simple recipe. After you've done that, we're going to add in the 125 grams of sugar, and I'm going to use just a knife to stir this through, and I'll show you in a minute why I'm going to use that. Give that a quick stir together. Then I'm going to add into this my butter. You can, if you want to, add some dried fruit, maybe some apricots that have been chopped up, or maybe you would like to add some raisins, okay? I'm not going to stir that through completely because I'm going to add my golden syrup. So this is my trick with the hot water. Just pop your spoon into the hot water before you start, okay? And now, when you use the spoon, because the spoon was hot, the golden syrup falls off it much more easily than if it was a cold spoon. So I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of my golden syrup. Okay, once I've added these 3 ingredients together, I'm going to use my knife just to stir it around. Now I'm using a knife instead of a wooden spoon just because I find that the ingredients stick to the knife less, okay, and that just makes this stirring process a little bit easier. So what I'm doing now is I'm just combining my dry and wet ingredients together. This is actually known as the melting method of cake making, and the reason for that is because we started off with some melted butter, okay. Once we've got everything combined together, we're then going to move over to our tin. You need a 20 by 20 centimetre tin, and it needs to be lined with some baking parchment. If you haven't got a 20 by 20 tin, what you can do is you could use something else that you've got in the home, and maybe you need to scale up or scale down the ingredients. Anything you're not sure about, please drop me a message and I'll answer those questions. And so we're just going to tip the flapjack ingredients into the tin, and now using the knife just spread them around and start to squash them down. So it's worthwhile spending a little bit of time just squashing your flapjacks down to make sure that they're going to hold themselves together in the oven, okay? Oven gloves on as ever, and they're going into an oven at 180 degrees C for a fan assisted oven, and they're going in for 12 to 15 minutes. I'd advise you to check them after 10 minutes. You don't want them to burn, you just want them to be golden brown. Okay, so the timer's gone off for the flapjacks, so oven gloves on when we get them out. and heat-proof mats are down. Okay, so what's important to remember is that this metal tray is extremely hot, so you must be careful when you're doing this next stage. You just need a normal knife that you would use to eat your dinner with, and what we're going to do is actually going to cut our flapjacks up. So just lift them up while I'm doing this. You don't need to lift yours up, just so you can see. When we cut into them, they will start to break apart because actually the flapjacks won't be fully set until they've cooled down. If you leave cutting them until they're cool, you'll never get a knife to go through them. So gently press down and lift up, and as you can see, the flapjacks, they cut through really easily, but they are a little bit soft. So I'm going to cut mine into 8 pieces. So start off with a square, and then I'm just going to cut them into flapjack fingers. You can cut them into smaller pieces depending on the size of your audience. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now, you have to be extremely careful when you're doing this. I'm going to advise you to put your oven gloves back on. I'm actually going to pick up the flapjacks using the greaseproof paper. Please ask somebody in your home to help you do this. If you do this with just your fingers, you are at risk of burning them, okay? So oven gloves back on, and the reason I'm doing this is just to speed the process up. So I'm going to lift up my greaseproof paper, pop it onto, take these off to make it easier, pop this onto my cooling rack, and the reason for doing that is now that the cool air can actually get under the flapjacks and they're no longer sitting in the hot metal tray, which would actually hold the heat. The worry is that they continue to cook because the metal tray is cooked. So these are going to take probably an hour to cool down at room temperature, and hopefully then you can enjoy them. Thanks very much.